like to open up with my own story too, just to kind of give you guys some context for where I'm coming from when I do these shows. And it's sort of like a not completely, it's a badly kept secret that I do these events. The different themes of these events have kind of followed on things that I've been working through in my own life. When I did the very first event on community, I was sort of like transitioning. I was kind of phasing out of a community I'd been a part of with for a long time, and was trying to kind of create a new community around myself. And what did that all mean? When we did the last show on love, sex, and relationships, I was really trying to own that for myself and figure out like, how do I show up in relationships the way I want to? And here we're doing this topic of work, money, and I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I'm broke. I am broke. And I've never really had a lot of money in my life. It's not necessarily that I have like crazy spending habits, or it's not that I haven't made money, but I've always kind of struggled with finding kind of fulfillment in my professional life. I've done different jobs. I've done things that I thought might have been interesting and important, but it didn't always work out for me very long. It was always had this question of meaning. I wanted everything I did for my 40 hours a week to have some meaning for me, and that's kind of hard to do sometimes. Not all of our jobs do that for us. And so when I look at like people at SOC, like some of you that raise your hands and you're like, yeah, my work is great. I'm very fulfilled. And I see some of those charts up there, and I'm like, God, like I'm like halfway intrigued and halfway worried about you. Like that's great, but I like also kind of worry that maybe you have like Stockholm syndrome or something. I'm just a little bit worried about you in that regard. But many years ago, I took a bunch of like personality tests, and I read a book about like how to pick a career, and the personality test told me that I liked big ideas, sometimes to my own detriment, which I was like, thank you very much for that. And the books about like picking a career said like, you like big ideas, and like maybe you should be like a writer or something. And I was like, yeah, okay, cool, I'll be a writer. Like that pays. And I had this problem that my father, the way he would put it, he was like, well, I think you're just being a little bit idealistic about what you're doing. And I was like, yeah, but I gotta spend like 40 hours a week doing something. Like you should be, right? And also, I'll be honest, I was a little bit stupid. I think it's very easy for somebody, white male that grows up in a suburban environment, to just sort of figure that's all gonna work out. I didn't really think about what my career was gonna be growing up. I just figured I'd go to college, get a job, get married, buy a house, have kids, and I didn't really think of it all through, So it didn't, and then when it didn't work out, I was like, oh, I have to like figure this out. So I started this whole series, The New Narrative, about 5 years ago. And when I first started it, it was scary. I wasn't sure if people were gonna be into it. I wasn't sure if it was gonna resonate with people. I spoke about in terms of like, it would be cool if somebody started a speaker series about social issues. That'd be cool if somebody did that. And then people were like, dude, you know how to run events? Like, you could do that. I'm like, yeah, but didn't really have an answer. But so I did it, and I was really worried. I sat on the idea for years because I didn't think it would really work, but then when I did it, people came, and we did the first event on community, and then we did the second event on communication, and people came to that, and I started to see that this idea is really resonating with people. People like these events. And I got felt really affirmed, like, you know what, this is what I'm gonna do. Like this, I'm gonna do these events, I'm gonna make these things happen, I'm gonna create these discussions. And it really felt like I found something that worked for me. But I'm gonna let you guys in on a little secret. These events don't make a whole lot of money, even though a lot of you guys are here. It's expensive. It makes some money, like a 3-digit number. There's a 3-digit number that I go home with at the end of all of this, but it's like a middle 3-digit number, like not a high 3-digit number, like a middle 3-digit number. So that's kind of like what happens with these events. Like it just makes no financial sense for me to be doing this at all. Just I'm telling you guys this now. But a funny thing did happen after I started making these events, doing these events. I started to get asked after one of the events, I got asked like, hey, I really like the way you talked about storytelling, the way that event went, and my boss was talking about how they'd like a storytelling training in our work. Would you be willing to come do that? And I was like, oh, yeah, I could do that. And they're like, how much will you charge? Like, oh, well, you'll pay me, okay. And I was like, how about like $350? And the friend got back to me and said that the boss's assistant approved it without even looking up. And I could probably charge more next time. I was like, okay, I'm definitely doing 400 next time. And it wasn't until about the 4th or 5th time that this came up that the person that brought it up, they just gave me their budget outright. They just told me what their budget was. And it was like a whole decimal place bigger than what I had been asking for. And I was like, yeah. And they were like, is that enough? I'm like, yeah, that's enough. Yeah, I'll do that. And so it's kind of like just like that. Like I was like, oh, like I have a new career. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do these trainings now. And I started to make plans to quit my job and do these trainings full time. And after about 2 years of kind of putting things together and feeling like I could make it happen, I did it. I quit my job and I started doing trainings full time, and I was getting out there and doing it. And it started off really great. People were paying me. I was going off and I was doing trainings at different organizations. I was leading board retreats. They'd bring me in to help scientists tell stories. They'd bring me in to help nonprofit development departments tell stories. These are all things I'll do for your company if you pay me. And it went amazing. And I was like, this is like, why, like, this is great. How come that book I read before didn't tell me about this, that I could do this for a living and make like a paycheck and then some in a morning instead of like a whole week or 2 weeks. And I just felt like I had like figured it all out. But there was a reality that kicked in a little bit later. Any entrepreneurs in the room know that after a while, what goes up must come down, and things, I had a couple slow months, and I was like, well, it's okay. Like, there's bound to be some slow times. I can handle this. And I put some money on the credit card, thinking like, this is just a little uptick soon. And a couple more slow months, didn't uptick. Put a little bit more money on the credit card. I was like, oh, I don't know if it's going to pick back up again. It's not going to go quite the way I thought. And I started to get a little scared. I started to realize like maybe this whole plan of mine didn't have all the pieces I needed to make it happen. And so, people were still interested in my services, just not quite the degree that I needed. And I had one morning that was particularly surreal because I spoke at this conference for scientists, about how they could incorporate science into their communication. And I spoke in front of 200 people. Like, there's a line of people that talked to me afterwards. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. Nobody in the audience knew that I had come straight from an orientation to be a DoorDash driver to speak at this conference, because I was just so freaked out about money in my life. And so I started to think like, maybe I am being idealistic. Maybe I should go get a real job and do that. And I started doing a lot of informational interviews, and I talked to people about real jobs. And I was like, oh, I really don't want a real job. And I started to read books about like money and wealth and how to make it happen in your life. You guys ever read any of these books? I read You Are a Badass at Making Money. Yeah, that's a good one. It talked about how money being energy. And I was like, then I'm a fucking inert metal. I'm lead or something like that. And but then I read another book called The Soul of Money. You guys ever read this book? And it talked about how when you live in alignment with your true purpose, the universe conspires to help you. The universe provides. And I was like, all right, okay, rich white lady. But it also kind of resonated with me in a weird way, because in my life, when I talked about how I worked through these other issues, like one of the things that all these issues of things I've worked through in my life, like with relationships or with identity, or communication, was when I kind of got to like my really truest, authentic self, things really did go a lot better. Especially like, I thought about with relationships, when I finally kind of got to the place where I was just showed up as myself in relationships and like got let go of any expectations of what kind of person I was supposed to be in a relationship or what kind of boyfriend I was supposed to be. I finally found like a really, amazing relationship. Love you, babe. And, when I learned to like kind of communicate as my true authentic self, I started making the kind of friends that I've always been wanting to make. And so that idea kind of resonated with me, like, all right. But then I was also like, well, what if like my true authentic self doesn't want to go to work? Like, what happens then? Like, how does this all work out? And so this is what I'm still trying to figure out. And I got some insight from this show. So hopefully you guys do this too. But I did start to decide, like, you guys might have noticed, I've been doing a lot more events, smaller events, to try and make something happen. Because what I want to do with this whole concept of the new narrative is create like a community and create this situation where we're meeting up regularly and we're having a venue to talk about ideas that are difficult to us. And we have a venue to share our own stories and understand how the stories we tell ourselves really, affect how we see the world. And, all can be part of a dialogue that we're all having together and deciding on what the new narrative is going to be for all of us, right? So, so you know how they say that thing like, do what you love and the money will follow? So far, like, do what you love and about like half the money you need will follow. That's been my experience so far. But we're working on it. It's only been like 2 years. But anyways, to me, it's just important that we have this dialogue, we have this place going on where we're meeting and we're having these discussions. So hopefully you guys are into this too. You guys like this idea that we're gonna like have this talk about work and money, these difficult things in our lives? You guys into it? All right. And what do you guys say? Let's start the show. Let's get our speakers up here. So I want to do like one big round of applause. I'm gonna